with the next chapter. Any questions for me from any of the previous chapters as I'm sharing the screen? So this lecture is more on anthropology than genetics. This is human ancestry and evolution, and here actually we are going to talk not just about genetics but about the cultural, social, and biological evolution of man, because all of these contributed to the development of the modern man that we see. Scientifically, the modern human being, the scientific name for modern human being is Homo sapiens sapiens. You know how all animals, all plants, all living organisms in this world, we have scientific names so that there is no confusion, because people from different countries use different language. So if we all have our particular languages, then there might be confusion. So scientific names are given to each living organism so that there is no confusion. And in general, we just use Homo sapiens. So Homo is known as the genus and sapiens is our species. So we are species, okay, Homo sapiens species. So human origins, how do we know about the evolution or this past history? A lot of information comes from fossil records. Okay, whatever we found when there were excavations, they found bones, they found remains, in preserved in various stages. But fossil record is not complete. It's not as if somebody just decorates it and gives it to you in a platter. So you scientists just discover it by chance, and then it could be partially degraded. They only recover partial remains. So it's not complete, but still, with all these new technologies, new methods, we do get a lot of information out, because we can use methods to find out how old that bone is, how old that remain is. And then we can use computer simulations to kind of build up on whatever we found to how this particular primate might have looked, or how this particular early man might have looked. So species that have common DNA sequences with human beings, this is commonly accepted by scientists, that they are more likely to have arisen from a common ancestor. So when you look at the evolutionary tree, you go back to older and older and older times. So then from that old, that common ancestor species started evolving, and slowly, gradually, with the passage of time, there were branches, offshoots that went on moving, and then at the end of the evolution tree we see human beings. So that means a species with which we share more of our DNA sequence. That means they are more closely related to us. That means the divergence from that common ancestor came at a much later stage, and that is why we have more homology. We call it in biological terms homology in our DNA sequences with those species. So this is the modern human being, Homo sapiens. In other words, it means the wise human. So probable date of arrival is about 200,000 years ago. That is like relatively new in terms of when you think about history and evolutionary time, then 200,000 years is brand new, okay, compared to a lot of other living organisms that have existed on this earth. So going back to the ancestry of human beings, it looks like about 6 million years ago, MYA, this family of human beings known as hominin, it broke off from apes. So it's not that man evolved from apes. Man evolved from a common ancestor that apes and human beings shared. So this is the common ancestor of human and apes. One line became gorillini, and the gorillini went on to become chimpanzees, bonobos, and gorillas, while this other family called hominini, it started developing into various early human forms. And the three earliest candidates, the ones that have been most widely studied and for which evidence is present, are these three. Ardipithecus cadaba, this was found in Ethiopia. This is where this particular early human being lived. Then the second one is Sahelanthropus chadensis. This is from Chad, also in Africa. And then Ororin tugenensis, this is from Kenya. All these three. So if you see, this was the common ancestor of the great apes, common ancestor of the African apes. And then you see this is going into the gorillini, and then this here will be going into the hominini family, okay? So we are going to learn a little bit about, some of the early ancestors to human life, to human beings. The first well-known ancestor is called Australopithecus. This is supposed to have, this is found to have existed about 2 to 4 million years ago. What are some of the important features on Australopithecus that you remember? That this particular early human form was bipedal, okay, could walk very well on his 2 feet, did not live on trees, he could walk full upright. But what are still the differences that you see? If you look at the skull shape was very different because the base was flat, it's not rounded, like more like human beings. The teeth were more like humans, okay. Lifestyle, Australopithecus didn't know agriculture, so it was hunter-gatherer lifestyle. So this is one of the earliest known human forms. Now there are different Australopithecus species that were found in different places at different times. For example, Australopithecus anamensis, Australopithecus afarensis, okay, Australopithecus garhi. So you see this different timeline from when they were found. This one is very famous. Her name is Lucy. She's supposed to be female, existed about 3.6 million years ago. The skull is, very human-like. Face is less prominent, but you see the difference here is the arms were still very long. So another one of the differences between human beings and apes is that our hands became shorter as we became bipedal and became more comfortable, and we started using our hands for a lot of things. Our hands don't reach as long as this. Then came, okay, more recent, Homo habilis. So you see the genus is Homo, same as us, Homo sapiens, but it's a different species. It has still not become the wise man. So Homo habilis is supposed to have existed about 2.3 million years ago. He was a cave dweller, okay. What were some of the advanced characteristics that you saw that, that was not the same as more primitive ones? Was this particular human form cared very intensively for young. So the parental care is strong, and started using tools, okay, extensive use of tools. So whenever there's an extensive use of tools, your opposable thumb comes into action. So when you start using your hands and you start making tools, that means you've started controlling the environment around you, okay. Habilis means handy, so that should remind you of the tools. And this is supposed to have coexisted at the same time. In another part was Homo erectus, that was another early form. So Homo erectus, about 1 million years ago, these two forms overlapped with each other. What are the changes that you're seeing? You see the change in the skull shape, okay. The forehead is still shallow, okay. Brain is about 1/3 the size of modern human beings. Brain is enlarging, but still not as large. Skull base is more angled, it's not flat. This human form was, existed in societies, and more social skills are getting developed, cooperative, and started using fire. So use of fire or discovery of fire is also a very important landmark in the development of human societies, because fire means now he could keep the wild animals away and he could cook meat. The male and female started living in pairs. This was found in Africa as well as Asia. Then the new human species has come, Homo sapiens, but we are Homo sapiens sapiens, and this is Homo sapiens idaltu. This is a computer generated image. This is how a Homo sapiens idaltu might have looked. Physically very, very similar to modern human beings, right? Probably resemble some aborigine, because all continents, all countries have some of the other type of aborigines. Now this was an offshoot, Homo neanderthalensis. This was found, fossils have been found in different parts of Europe, but it is believed that they split from the Homo sapiens sapiens lineage about 400,000 years ago. They lived all over Europe. Their remains have been found, but the DNA analysis shows major differences from Homo sapiens sapiens, okay, but we don't know what the reasons were, why they just totally vanished. It's like the dinosaurs, something happened and the Neanderthals were totally wiped out. They disappeared. Now, analyzing their DNA is difficult because a lot of it has been damaged. It was really old. So DNA, mitochondrial DNA is sometimes also used to learn about these early human forms. it is, and all of these research has shown that Neanderthals and our ancestors parted ways before humans left Africa. So when humans started moving out of Africa, it was even before they had left Africa that Neanderthalensis became a side branch. Okay, it was an offshoot. This was a paper published in 2017, a scientific paper in Nature. Nature is one of the highest ranking scientific journals. You see here, it was talking about deeply divergent archaic mitochondrial genome provides lower time boundary for African gene flow into Neanderthals. That means it might have been even more recent than what was originally thought. Then another offshoot was, just like the Neanderthals, another offshoot was the Denisovans, okay? And information about the Denisovans came from DNA that was obtained from a pinky finger bone. And the location where it was found was in Siberia in a Denisova cave. That's why the name the Denisovans. The mitochondrial DNA, because you know that sometimes mitochondrial DNA has to be used for forensics, for other analysis. So mitochondrial DNA sequence was, it did not match with Neanderthals or Homo sapiens sapiens. So these genomes were quite different. You see a lot of differences in the DNA sequences. So that's how you know it was not in our lineage. It was an offshoot. Then back to Homo sapiens sapiens, modern humans. About, cave art has been found from about 14,000 years ago that it shows that by that time, our ancestors had actually achieved several milestones. They became from just hunter and gatherers to cultivators, and they started, there was cultural revolution. And this was a preserved specimen, and then they generated, how this might have looked. It's called the Ozi, the Iceman, okay? And this was preserved in ice from about 5,200 years ago, genetically very much like us. There was fine hand coordination, very good use of tools, and they started communicating with symbols. Now these are farmers from 7,100 years ago, looked quite like modern people, like you cannot differentiate. Now, if you look at indigenous people, what do we mean by indigenous people? Indigenous people means a group of people that can trace its ancestry back farther than any other group, okay, in that particular region. So for example, if you go to Africa, then they're the Pygmies of Africa or the Etas of Japan or whatever, the different tribes. So every country, there might be the indigenous people who have lived in that land for the longest before anybody else had been there. Now we're talking about human evolution, and this is all about fossil records and things. And mainly when we think about evolution and the DNA sequences were being compared, we had to use samples from indigenous people because they are the oldest from that part. So you see a lot of molecular biology is used there, right? Because DNA and protein sequences are being compared. Chromosomes are being stained for banding. The entire genome structure is being studied. Now, mutations also play a very important role in telling us about divergence. Why? Because when we're comparing two DNA sequences, we see how much they differ from each other. How did they differ? They differed because of mutations. So the more the mutations in the DNA, okay, so if we're comparing two DNA sequences and you see more differences because of more mutations, that means they are more distantly related or the divergence was older. So fewer changes, fewer mutations indicate closer relation and more recent divergence. More mutations means more ancient divergence. Comparing genes and genomes, we see similarities in DNA sequences. This is very, very common. Every time we also do that all the time. We do molecular research and it comes up, we come up with a sequence and we have to compare it to see how it differs between humans and mice and rats and all the animals that we commonly use. Now, it is sometimes very interesting to see that across different species, different animals, we see a gene that is present, let's say, in human beings, in horses, in rats, in cats. So you see that gene is commonly present in a lot of species. That means that gene came from our ancestor and it has continued in the species. And a mutation in that gene, a similar type of mutation in that gene is actually producing similar effects. So one such example is the Waardenburg syndrome. The Waardenburg syndrome includes mutations in all of these genes that I have added here, and it produces similar phenotypes, similar traits. So when mutations occur in these genes, you see a white streak of hair okay, between the eyes going up to the forehead like this. So you see this white streak here in the horse, in the cats and the rats, okay. Now you will see a similar thing in human beings as well. Okay, this is Waardenburg syndrome. In human beings, what are the other symptoms that you see? The eyes are usually widely spaced. The eyes are light colored. Sometimes the eyes could be differentially colored. That means one eye is light color, the other eye is another color. There are 3 to 4 different types of Waardenburg syndrome. And in some of the forms, there could also be hearing loss. So these are the same symptoms that you see in human beings as well as in animals. Same gene, same mutation producing similar phenotype. That tells us, there's more evidence for evolution, for coming from the common ancestor. So when we compare chromosomes, karyotypes are made. That means charts are drawn, for all of the different chromosomes. What has been found is that karyotypes between apes and more primitive primates differ predominantly by translocations, while karyotypes among great apes differ by inversions. So remember the different types of mutations. Inversion means where the sequences get inverted, and translocation is simply exchange. One can go and just sit on top of another. So this table compares chromosomes and tells you the percent of common chromosome bands between humans and other species. So what is the similarity in the chromosome banding pattern between human beings and chimpanzees? More than 99%. Between gorillas and human beings, 99%. Orangutans, 99%. African green monkeys, 95%. Domestic cats, 35%. Mice, 7%. Now, when we compare DNA, how about proteins? Do we compare proteins? Yes, we also compare proteins, because proteins are the ones that are producing the phenotypes or the traits. So variations in proteins can be used to determine how similar or different two species are genetically. For example, this protein, the cytochrome C protein, is involved in energy production in mitochondria and is present in all animals. Okay, and actually human and chimpanzee cytochrome C are identical in their amino acid. They're totally identical proteins that you see in human beings and chimpanzees. Molecular clock, the rate of mutation gives you an idea of the timeline of divergence, timeline of evolution. The rate at which mutation is occurring between two DNA sequences, you can see that and use it as a clock to provide or know about the time since divergence from a common ancestor. What are some other genetic markers that are used for evolution? Mitochondrial DNA has to be used in a lot of cases because of lack of lack of good nuclear DNA. Y chromosome is used to study inheritance from father, while mitochondrial DNA is usually maternal inheritance. Some other genetic markers that we use to compare, we were talking about mutations. So when the mutation is present in more than 1% of the population, it is SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism. We also look at repeats, short tandem repeats. We look at copy number variants, and then these can be used to create haplogroups. We have learned about haplogroups and haplotypes before. This is a group of markers that tend to stick together and tend to be inherited together. So that means when you have to, let's say this group has 5,000 genes, and that means you don't have to individually study those 5,000 genes. You just look at some of the tag SNPs and you can easily predict about all of those 5,000 genes together. So this is what happens to your ancestral chromosomes. They look like this after many generations and crossing over and all of that. It starts looking like this, and you have haplotypes. So this block of green tends to stay together. This is one haploblock. This block of blue tends to stay together. This is one blue haploblock. Mitochondrial Eve, for anthropologists, always the question existed because we talk about who was the ancestral male, what was the ancestral female, and we have given the name of the mitochondrial Eve because there were some remains, fossil remains were found from 3 different female potential candidates for as our ancestral female, and then they compared and did a lot of molecular analysis on these ancestral women, and they found out, so these were the 3 candidate females, Betty, Eve, and Wilma, about 100,000 to 3,000 years ago. And they started to build, how this could have come, and this led to a dead end with the molecular analysis. This also led to a dead end, while only this one, Eve, she came and the linkage could show modern gene pool all the way up to Homo sapiens sapiens. So we all know that this evolution began in Africa. Okay, this is what is now known. But there was a time when there was a discussion going on between scientists. There were two hypotheses. First was out of Africa hypothesis, that evolution started in Africa, and then as man evolved, man started moving out, roaming around, migrated to different parts. Or there was another hypothesis which is called multi-regional, that humans evolved, they evolved in different parts independently, different parts of the world. But when a lot of analysis research was done with mitochondrial DNA, Y chromosomes, autosome sequences, it was found that science supports the out of Africa hypothesis. So this is how this figure shows you how this all started. So this is where it began. Homo sapiens first started here. Then Homo sapiens, she is even giving you timeline, 200,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, it was already here in this part. By 70,000 years, it had reached India, other parts of Asia. By 40,000, then 25,000 years, it was going into Europe and Russia. Then you see 15,000, 12,000, it had reached North America. So what makes us human? There are some landmark mutations, genetically changes that set us apart. Okay, so if you see this, the human being here, speech, communication, that we can communicate very efficiently. It's because of this, thanks to this gene, the FOXP2 gene. There were mutations that occurred in this gene and made us able to verbalize our emotions and expressions very efficiently. Our brain size increased. This is the biggest factor that caused the evolution of human beings. So large number of genes there, the genes were developing and mutating faster. Our skin looks very different from the primates, from other apes. Is because the keratin gene got silenced. So we do not have as much body hair as, let's say, chimpanzees or gorillas. We got sweat glands. This was also due to a genetic mutation. Okay, we are very efficient bipedal animals. We can walk and run. So this is because of AHL1 gene. Okay, so this is also due to a genetic change. So all of these together, it was a sum total of all of these genetic changes that made us different, that made us stand out. In addition to all of these genetic changes, what were we discussing about? We were discussing about opposable thumbs. We were talking about ambition. We were talking about, remember, fire. Fire is very important, okay, for cultural evolution. Then man learned to domesticate animals. Agriculture started. So that was also a turning point. All of these, there are so many things that caused or contributed to the evolution of man. So what makes us different? You see here, from ancestral vertebrate genome, there was a complicated duplication. This is genetic, genetic factors. There was loss of some DNA, some deletions had to be there. Like, for example, we lost that keratin one, we silenced it, okay, keratin 1 gene. There were some duplications, there were some inversions and translocations, and finally we got the modern human genome. And although we have reached, was supposed to be the wisest human beings around, but remember that we are still evolving. I don't know in which direction, but we are still going somewhere. Okay. Before we end the lecture, this is not a difficult lecture. This is a lot of memorization. I would like to share this video with you. Let's see here. And then we have to just stop share and then share screen with this one. Can you see the YouTube screen? Okay. And there are similar videos, some other ones there also on YouTube, and feel free to look at them. Any questions for me? So remember, tomorrow is your last lecture for this summer session, and then on Friday you have your final exam. Also, if you have not completed the iEval, that evaluation feedback, please do so in your free time. So I'll see you tomorrow.